Hello, I'm Dango Rose. Welcome to the Mountaineer Podcast, where everybody's listening. The Mountaineer brings you the latest news of the Peak to Peak region, in print, online, through our podcast, social media, and special publications. Now, listen in to the latest news of the area with our local journalists.
The song that you are currently listening to is called Azara, and it is performed by the jazz group Super Imposition. This is a live performance from Cervantes' Other Side. This performance took place on August 7th, 2024, and is available to watch in its entirety on their YouTube channel, Super Imposition Band. One of the members of that band is Jason Greenlaw, who is also involved with groups such as Sixth Wind and The Clock Reads. They're all available in various places wherever you get your music. And he also occasionally plays solo. In fact, he'll be performing a solo show at Eldora very soon. Be sure to stay tuned to the end of today's interview to learn more details about that show. And to learn more about Jason Greenlaw as a musician, be sure to head to his website at jasongreenlawmusic.com. Everybody, my name is Jamie Lammers, and welcome to the first episode of Season 5 of the Mountaineer Podcast. That's right, 2025 is the Mountaineer Podcast's 5th year, and I am super excited to see what this year is going to bring for the Mountaineer Podcast as a whole. We already have some ideas kicking around behind the scenes that will hopefully be out sometime in the near future, but for now, I wanted to bring my regular Music of the Mountains segment to you guys so that you know where to be and what to see right at the beginning of 2025. Before we get started, two things. First, if you haven't subscribed to The Mountaineer already, we highly recommend you do. We would really appreciate the support for the publication as well as for local journalism as a whole. Yes, there are articles on the website, the mtnear.com, that you can browse at your leisure, but if you want to view the full digital archive or scanned copies of the physical newspaper, maybe even receive a subscription of the physical newspaper in your mailbox or send it to someone you love, then be sure to head to our website today and subscribe. In fact, if you stay until the very end of this podcast, you'll get a discount specifically meant for podcast listeners. And the second thing, speaking of the website, here's a quick message brought to you by The Mountaineer.
At The Mountaineer, we have been working hard on our new website. The new site is up, and through November, it is completely free to check out. That's located at www.themountaineer.com.
All right, everyone, let's get into the first Music of the Mountains episode of 2025 and have our very first guest of 2025 introduce himself real quick. If you don't mind, of course.
Sure. So my name's Jason Greenlaw, and I'm a guitarist, band leader, teacher, and educator. Based out of the Front Range, doing a lot of work in Boulder and Denver. I'm actually originally from the East Coast, from the Philadelphia area, and then I went to school out in Pittsburgh and spent a lot of time out there. Moved to the area in 2020. But yeah, I'm an active teacher, and guitarist for the greater Denver area. Jazz guitar, I would say, is my main trade. And I do everything from playing solo guitar to small jazz combos to I write music and perform with an original group of mine, Superimposition, which is all Denver musicians. And that's kind of like a jazz fusion group. To also playing with pit orchestras and wedding bands on the gamut in terms of places and situations I play in. And yeah, good summary.
And as a solo guitar player, you'll be performing at Eldora very soon.
Correct. Yeah, coming up this January.
So how did your musical interest start? What piqued your interest in music in the first place, and how did you ultimately decide you wanted to pursue music?
Sure. Well, it definitely started when I was pretty young. I got involved with music just kind of in the school system when I was in elementary school. My first instrument was the violin. I think I was in first or second grade. I think it was second grade. Yeah, so just learning fundamental music stuff in elementary school, and violin was the first instrument with that. And then I eventually picked up the alto saxophone, and then I played that into middle school. And then in sixth grade, I switched over to the guitar and got involved in jazz band in middle school and high school, and that was sort of when I dived a little deeper into private music instruction outside of school. So yeah, I mean, performing and sort of being involved with music really for most of my life.
It sounds like over your time performing music, jazz has been a pretty consistent style for you.
Yeah, I would say it really, I guess it was more like beginning of high school is when I got involved with jazz band. And my private teacher started exposing me to more jazz music. I would say it really wasn't until really, though, college and even towards the end of college and once I was out that I was really sort of performing jazz on a serious level on my own. I think definitely a lot of my roots in terms of getting interested in music, just sort of on a personal level, was definitely just rock music. I mean, I remember I really, especially in middle school and high school, I listened to a lot of 90s grunge music. And my dad was into a lot of classic rock, Santana, Billy Cobham, and sort of some old school jazz rock fusion. But as my instrumental studies and music studies got a little more serious, as time went on, jazz became more and more of a serious subject.
And I assume that for at least a portion of that time, you've been writing your own material. What's the writing process been like over the years? Are there any processes that you keep coming back to? And is there anything that keeps you coming back to writing in general?
Yep. Oh, I mean, songwriting is sometimes a very amorphous thing. I think sometimes compared to others, I feel a little more productive or motivated to write. I know I started to write a little more music when I moved out here, and then I started playing and forming a new group and a new band. That was sort of a new excitement to start writing. So, I mean, I definitely, depending on some of the musicians that I'm playing with, that'll sort of spark some creativity in writing for a particular group. But I think sort of inspiration for writing kind of comes from a lot of different places. Sometimes I'll feel particularly inspired by some artists that I'm listening to, and that'll be a seed for writing some new songs if I get really attached to a couple records and a couple artists. I'll use a lot of their music as inspiration and seeds to kind of grow into more songs. And I think sometimes I'll write songs almost as like an exercise. Sometimes, especially more of a jazz context, it's good to just kind of practice writing. We'll be like, I'm going to write a new song that works on this harmony or maybe this kind of feel, and it will be sort of a simpler song, but be a cool new avenue to explore some musical ideas. And then there's songs that are a little longer and a little more involved, and I sort of have a bigger idea. So, I mean, I'm always sitting on songs that I need to finish. So it's depending on the context. There's sort of different types of compositions I'll be working on at all times. But I think the longer one, the more involved ones, once you finally finish those and start to flesh those out, those are sometimes the more exciting ones.
So how do you balance performing your original compositions and covers in your solo and group performances?
I would say, I mean, a lot of the times since I play a lot of jazz and even like a solo guitar context, you know, like the upcoming gig at Eldora, that'll probably still be a little more heavily on the covers side and playing jazz standards or pop tunes as jazz standards. I think a lot of music I write is definitely meant for more groups, trios, quartets, and quintets.
And in general, how long have you been writing original material?
You know, I've never really had a lot of deep formal training on like composition per se. You know, a lot of jazz education, and I guess even like just guitar education. I mean, you're learning about songs. You're always analyzing songs rather than like a classical musician who's like studying composition and arranging. I definitely started to experiment with it, early in high school, just writing rock and jam bandy songs with my friends. So I guess high school is as early as that started, and then into college when I helped start like a new group with my college mates. It would go between like writing songs together to individual musicians in the group writing full songs and bringing them. But I would say it kind of goes back, I think high school was when it started.
And since you've performed solo and in many groups over the years, are there preferences that you have when it comes to performing solo or performing in a group? Are there pros and cons to playing in either?
Yes. I wouldn't say there's any cons to any of the settings. I think a guitar jazz trio, a guitar, bass, and drums, and then a quartet with guitar, keyboard, bass, and drums are probably my two favorite and most frequented instrumentations that I enjoy the most.
And in general, no matter what you end up playing or who you end up playing with, what are some of your favorite parts about being able to perform live?
It's just always cool. And even if it's songs I've been playing for a while, I think when you're performing in front of people, if you're taking it seriously and paying attention to the room and the audience and yourself and your music, there's always something new that I think comes out when you're playing in front of people. So there's always something new that I find will come out of my playing, even on the jazz standard I've played, hundreds of times. So it's something a little new, and having people just sort of listen to you, it's just always a fun experience. I mean, I think it's almost as simple as that. It's always fun. And if you're paying attention, I think something new will sort of come out of it each time.
And is there anything that you hope audience members will be able to take away from your shows when they come and see you?
One, I just always hope for, in some degree, some sort of listening audience. I think all the working musicians know, we play in a lot of different situations where there's crowded bars or your background music. And we always just hope for people to, even if it's for a brief amount of time, just hang out and just listen and hear what you're playing. And I guess one thing that I hope that they hear is a sense of fun and joy, and I think spontaneity. I think those few things are something I always try to have in the spirit of my playing. Yeah.
And I'm curious, after the Eldora performance, are there any other performances or releases that are coming up soon that you want to talk about?
Sure. There's a couple things. Hopefully sometime this year, probably first half this year, first or second quarter, I'll be going into the studio to record a bunch of original music. I think both under my name, Jason Greenlaw, and then also specifically my quartet, Superimposition. So sometime first quarter this year, I hope to get into the studio and play a lot of the songs that basically for the past couple years out here I've been writing and playing and sort of workshopping with a bunch of the musicians that I work with. I definitely love to, at least in terms of the music that I release, a big part of it is playing that music live, and I think a lot of recent songs, just cool, unique life has been breathed into them after playing them live in a number of different situations. So be on the lookout for new Superimposition EP, some more music under just my own name, Jason Greenlaw. I'm also in the middle of releasing sort of a staggered EP release, which seems to be kind of a popular thing artists are doing nowadays, to kind of release an album and a series of singles until the full album's out there. I have a very cool trio with two other musicians who are great friends of mine from Pittsburgh, although we're all kind of spread out now, and that trio is called Sixth Wind, and we're a contemporary jazz adjacent, sort of jazz fusion and rock improvisation group. And we are in the midst of releasing our second EP, which will be out on Spotify. And what else? Every month, my group Superimposition plays at license number 1 Speakeasy in Boulder every second Friday. So it's always a show to come check out. I think that's it for the immediate news.
And is there anything else in general about your music or personal life that you want to add before we sign off?
No, other than just coming out to support live musicians is important for the community and the music scene. And I think sometimes people forget, some musicians of just the highest caliber are always playing in your local city, in your local metro area. So there's just tons of great musicians and artists that I feel fortunate to play with. And there's just a lot of great music out there, especially in the Denver area. So I encourage people to go out there, and they're probably going to find some local music that they'll love if they haven't found it already. And feel free to visit my website, jasongreenlawmusic.com. I teach both privately and out of a music school in Boulder. So if you're looking for lessons and expanding your music world, feel free to reach out to me there. Also have Instagram and Facebook. So also places to follow me, stay up to date.
Thank you so much, Jason, for coming on board and joining us for the podcast. As Jason just mentioned, if you want to learn more about him as a musician, be sure to head to his website at jasongreenlawmusic.com, where you can find all the rest of his social media. His Facebook, his Instagram, his YouTube, the Spotify page for his group The Clock Reads, and the Bandcamp page for his group Superimposition. His group Sixth Wind is also available wherever you get your music. To see Jason Greenlaw perform at Eldora, primarily located at 2861 Eldora Ski Road in Netherlands, be sure to head over to the Caribou Lodge, where he will be performing as part of Eldora's Full Moon Ski and Dinner Series on Monday, January 13th, 2025, starting at 7 p.m. Here's a quick message brought to you by The Mountaineer.
Are you interested in advertising? The Mountaineer has advertising in print, on our website, through our social media. We have 3 guides each year, coupon insertions, and more. Want more information? Email marketing@themountaineer.com or give Bethany a call at 720-960-2900.
And now, for the very first music mentions of 2025. Head to Busey Brews, located at 70 East 1st Street in Netherlands on Sunday, January 12th, starting at 2 p.m. to see Gratefully Acoustic performing live. Head to the Eldora Mountain Resort, located at 2861 Eldora Ski Road in Netherlands, for a smattering of music events coming up soon. On Wednesday, January 8th, starting at noon, Andy Thorne will be performing in Timbers Tap House. On Friday, January 10th at 9 a.m., you can see DJ Cha-Cha in the Boombox. On Friday, January 10th at noon, the artist-in-residence PJ Moon will be performing in Timbers Tap House. On Saturday, January 11th at 9 a.m., Panda Bear will be performing in the Boombox. On Saturday, January 11th at noon, Drew Parker will be performing in Timbers Tap House. On Sunday, January 12th at 9 a.m., Panda Bear will be performing in the Boombox again. On Sunday, January 12th at noon, Lucas Wolf will be performing in Timbers Tap House. And of course, on Monday, January 13th, Jason Greenlaw will be performing solo at the Caribou Lodge as part of Eldora's Full Moon Ski and Dinner Series, starting at 7 p.m. Head to the Jamestown Mercantile, located at 108 Main Street in Jamestown, on Wednesday, January 8th, starting at 5 p.m. for an open mic night. On Thursday, January 9th, starting at 7 p.m. to see the MMB3 Organ Trio performing live. Fun fact, all 4 members of both lineups of this particular organ trio, MMB3 and MVB3, will be performing at this event, and you can learn more about that performance in the previous Music of the Mountains episode. On Friday, January 10th, starting at 7 p.m. to see the Canyon Collective Band performing live, and on Sunday, January 12th, starting at 11 a.m. to see the Foggy Tops Bluegrass Band performing live. Knotted Root Brewing is continuing their regularly scheduled music events in 2025, so be sure to head over there at 250 North Caribou Street in Netherlands on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. for open mic nights, on Fridays at 7:30 p.m. for DJ nights, every second Friday at 7:30 p.m. for reggae DJ nights, and every Sunday at 5 p.m. for Jazz Sundays. Head to the Caribou Room, located at 55 Indian Peaks Drive in Netherlands on Saturday, January 11th, to see Thunder Boogie with DJ Blue. Doors open and dinner starts at 7 p.m., and the show starts at 8 p.m. If you want to get your tickets in advance, be sure to head over to thecaribouroom.com. And finally, pick your preference. If you want to visit Gilpin County, then be sure to head over to the Very Nice Brewing Company location at 180 Jankowski Drive in Blackhawk on Saturday, January 11th, starting at 5 p.m. to see Shakina Ma performing live. Or, if you're in the mood to visit Netherlands, then be sure to head over to the Very Nice Brewing location at 20 East Lakeview Drive, number 112 in the Caribou Village Shopping Center on Friday, January 10th at 6 p.m. to see Mountain Reverb performing live, and on Saturday, January 11th at 5 p.m. to see Reservoir Fog performing live. Did we miss you or any of your performances? Want to submit your music listing in the Peaks Peak area? Do you have updates to your business or your performances, especially for the year of 2025? Please be sure to call us at 303-810-5409 or email info@themountaineer.com or media@themountaineer.com to be included in the next print edition or the next podcast of the Mountaineer. Thank you so much to everybody who tuned in to the very first Mountaineer podcast episode of 2025, the first episode of season 5. And thank you to everyone who has been tuning in over the last 4 years in any capacity, whether you've been with us since the beginning or you've tuned in for an episode or two every now and again. We really appreciate your support regardless. If you want to share this episode or others around with whoever you see fit, then be sure to head to our website at the mtnear.com and scroll near to the bottom, or head to our podcast's main hub at the mtnearpodcast.buzzsprout.com to see a full archive of all 4 of our previous seasons. If you want to be involved in the podcast in any capacity in 2025, if you want to be interviewed, if you want to interview somebody, if you want to talk about your experience or somebody else's experience in the Peak to Peak area, if you have advertising that you want to share, whatever it is, if you have a connection to the Peak to Peak area and you want to share it here on the Mountaineer podcast, then be sure to email me at media@themountaineer.com and we will get something sorted for you. I have not been able to get out much aside from music-focused episodes for a long time, but get ready because Monday I am very excited to bring back a community-focused episode of the Mountaineer podcast. Get ready for Monday. It's going to be a good one. Have a great rest of your day. The song that you are currently listening to is called Spirit, and it is from the 2019 album Gnomon from The Clock Reads, which is one of the groups that jazz guitarist Jason Greenlaw is involved in. He is also involved in the group Sixth Wind and Superimposition. Jason Greenlaw will be performing at Eldora very soon as part of Eldora's Full Moon Ski and Dinner Series. Be sure to head over there at 2861 Eldora Ski Road to see him performing at the Caribou Lodge on Monday, January 13th, starting at 7 p.m. If you want to learn more about him as a musician, be sure to head over to his website at jasongreenlawmusic.com.
And that's it for our show. Subscribe online to get more access to more news, weekly updates to our community calendar, and a link to our YouTube channel by visiting themountaineer.com. Be sure to use the coupon code PODCAST when subscribing for a 10% discount, only available to our listeners. If you are in the local Peak to Peak area, be sure to pick up a print edition of The Mountaineer at a local business. I'm Dango Rose. Thank you for listening.